Look under a few rocks, Gordon. Oh yes, look, another load of winkles.
A massive load.
I'm actually just reaching with my hand there. That was a lucky find, wasn't it?
It's a very abundant resource, isn't it?
Incredibly abundant.
Now, what times of the year can you use mussels particularly?
Well, that's a thing. They're a bivalve, so they're filter feeding. So if they're near to a sewage outfall today, they're going to concentrate the muck.
And what about natural?
Well, there's a dinoflagellate algae. You get blooms of these in the oceans. They're particularly associated with cold upwelling currents of water. It is a problem, and this causes a type of poisoning that is very serious. It paralyses you, basically.
So it's that serious?
Very serious.
But there's another abundant type of shellfish which was really high on the Mesolithic menu: limpets.
We don't use limpets much today because they're hard to gather. It's difficult to collect them commercially, but they are very good, and certainly our ancestors used them.
Now, how did you detach those?
I just bash them with a rock, Gordon.
Okay.
A little rock here. So the secret is just, you've got to sneak up on them. The moment you know they're there, they clamp down.
I see. So
like that.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, you have to give them quite a clout.
Right.
Gordon seems to have taken a fancy to these limpets, but my favourite kind of shell food is found only at very low tides on sandy beaches. We've no idea how our ancestors would have gathered these, but for me, using salt is the best way to gather the delicious razor shell.
What do you think?
Superb. What a huge foot. It's amazing. The amount of meat in that presumably is very substantial.
So they put it down, make a fist and pull themselves in.
Trying to put themselves down.
You never dig them out. They move far too quickly.
That's the action. It's amazing to see.
Amazing creatures. That's a good size too, and they're very good eating.
I've never tried one.
Ha
The trick is patience. If you hold the shell tightly when it emerges, the foot soon exhausts itself, and then it's easy to pull it out. Mind you, you still need to step lightly in order to gather them.
So would you reckon these razor shells are the high point of shellfish eating?
They're very good eating. I don't know why we don't eat them. It's just because, we eat with our eyes in Britain, don't we? If you go to Paris, on the streets of Paris, they sell razor shells.
Do they?
Amazing.
I like foraging on the coastline. It reminds me of time spent with Aboriginals. They have a different pace to their life. Although there's only a small window of opportunity, tide-wise, you can't rush this job. You have to go slowly and steadily and look carefully. It's a reminder of how our lives once were.
What I've got here is a little bit of horse's hoof fungus, which occurs on dead birch trees in Scotland, and I'm just fraying that up, ready for making fire. That's my tinder. It's very fine. It comes up like cotton wool. And what I need to do is to generate a spark to drop into this to get this to catch light and start smouldering. To make the spark, I'm going to use a method that we know was used in prehistory. I'm going to use this. It's one of those nodules of Amperites I collected earlier. Remember I said that nobody's really certain how it's formed? Well, my favourite story came straight from the mouth of a professor of geology, no less, is that it could even be the blood of dinosaurs. Well, that might be unlikely, but that's my favourite story without a doubt. And I reckon they must have been dragons, because you get good sparks off of this. It's interesting material. With a new nodule of this newly collected, that brown colour is an oxide layer. It's like rust on the surface. And I've got to scrape back behind that before I'll get decent sparks. Now, to strike this, I'm going to use a piece of flint. And I've got a blade here I struck off earlier. I can start to smell a slight burning smell. It smells like a cigarette lighter. And that's a good sign. It means I'm getting sparks. Now, the sparks that come off of this are very small and they're very low temperature. They're a dull red colour. So sometimes you can't always see them in daylight. You can get that smell of burning, you know you're getting somewhere. Of course, if you're using this every day on a regular basis, it's very quick because you don't have much oxide layer built up. I'm getting a good smell of burning now. That's good. Getting better sparks. Just trying to get them to fall in the right place. There we go. There's one in there now. It takes a while. The wonderful thing about this tinder is it's so combustible. Wonderful. And that's just going to grow now. You can see there's a bit of a breeze here. I've brought another fungus with me. This is a King Alfred's cake. A cramp ball is another name of an ash tree. Daldinia concentrica. And this is wonderful for firelighting. And if I break this in half, you can see all these concentric rings in the middle. If I ignite this, it'll burn like a charcoal briquette. And I could have ignited it with one of these sparks, but it's more certain with this really fluffy tinder here. So I'll add that to that and get that tool to catch light now. Let's see. That's good. Now what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put that into bracken. And we're in business. All I need now is the shellfish. Oh, they look good, don't they?
I'm going to use flat rocks sterilised in the fire. They're ideal for cooking the limpets. I'll lay out the mussels hinge up beside them. A neat, orderly pattern like this makes it easy to find everything later.
So Gordon, I saw you collecting a lot of these limpets. Are you worried about these algae?
After you mentioned, explained the algal business, I thought, well, maybe limpets represent a safer choice.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were very heavily used in the past, and I think that today we don't rate them as a food. Now, obviously, we're cooking them here in kind of an Aboriginal way, but if you cook them at home and you then put them in a blender and blend them up, you can make a wonderful chowder with them.
Oh, really?
It's a fantastic flavour.
So limpets are really underrated overall.
They're very underrated. Very underrated. Well, it'd be interesting to see what you make of them, because you've not eaten a lot of shellfish.
I've had very little contact with them, and of course the area where I've done so much work in the past has been Near Eastern hunter-gatherers. And there, of course, the shellfish are not such a major contributor to diet. So these are the great seed-eating cultures of their version of the Mesolithic. So this is new to me, basically.
Whack some sticks on. Of course, the question people always ask is, how do people know which things were poisonous and which weren't? And that's a real puzzle, isn't it?
It is, and of course we know from ethnographic parallels that they have set systems for testing these things, didn't they? In North America, for example, the indigenous peoples there had the young men try a little bit roasted, and a little bit more roasted, and then a little bit boiled, and then they tried a bit raw.